Hey everybody, I have another goggle review today. This is going to be a pretty quick take on the Dye i3 Pro. This is Dye's older top-level goggle system. It was superseded a few years ago by the i4. I think that came out in 2009. Prior to that, this was Dye's top-of-the-line goggle system that replaced the i3, and it was kind of the next step in the Envision line. As you would expect with any high-end goggle system, which this is, even though it's a little bit older, it's still a high-end system. This has a nice thermal lens that will not fog on you. It's true dual pane. You're not going to be fogging issues. The field of view, however, is a little bit narrower than most of the top-end goggle systems available today. When you're wearing the goggles, you can actually see the frames on either side, which is not the case with Dye i4 or other newer goggle systems like the E-Flex or the Vio or things like that. The lens change is also not what you would consider a quick change system. It actually is fairly similar to the infamous JT tabs system. So you can actually see here, right there, that little piece is one of the tabs. It's holding the lens in place. You have here, you have right up here underneath the visor. You can't really see it, but up top there are a couple along the top of the lens that holds the lens into the frame. And in order to get the lens out, you have to first remove the frame from the rest of the goggles. It disconnects similar to like the way a Flex 8 frame comes off of the Flex 8 bottoms. And then once you do that, you kind of peel the frame away from the lens in the same way you would remove a JT lens. It's, from what I've heard, it's not as difficult as the JT spectral lens, but it is not a quick change system like the i4. Very similar to the i4, however, is the foam. The foam is very Dye-like. It's just like the i4, so it's soft, it's comfortable, but it's going to compress really easily. So, for instance, if you have a helmet cam kind of thing, it might press down on your nose a little bit, and that might not be comfortable. One area where this mask excels is breathability. You can see in the nose and mouth region just how much venting there is, and you can see from the inside really clearly how much of the area of the front of the mask is taken up by the venting. This makes for an extremely breathable mask and also for excellent voice projection. There's very little distortion or muffled effect when you're talking in this mask because of the large amount of venting in the front. Now, this is a high-end mask which tend to have smaller profiles and less complete coverage, but this is more of an older high-end mask from about 2007 or so the coverage on this mask is actually quite good. Now, my chin is a little exposed here in the front, but my face is a little bit on the longer side, so that might not be the case for most people. As you look up the side, however, though, the coverage is pretty good. It's right about at my jawline, okay? So here, this is below my jawline, but that's right at my jawline right there. So the coverage is right basically around my jawline, and then the ears kind of come up a little bit short, a little bit of the earlobe hanging out just a little bit. So the ear coverage is pretty good. Overall, this is a pretty complete coverage profile. It's not as good as like the V-Force Profilers, but that really comes down to the V-Force Profilers having a much lower chin, right? The jawline coverage is pretty comparable between the two. These goggles also have a visor to provide some degree of forehead coverage, but it's removable if you prefer not to use the visor. Unlike the original i3s, i3 Pros have soft ears, which are secured just by one screw in there, similar to like how JT attaches their ears. These ears are about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch thick in some places, so they're pretty robust. Now, the soft ears actually don't cover that much of you, and by that I mean the mask itself does most of the protecting. It goes all the way back here, okay? This is, the solid part of the mask. So the surface area protected by just the soft ears is relatively small. The main lowers of the goggles here are pretty flexible, okay? They're not ProFlex or E-Flex flexible, but they are definitely flexible. I think they're more flexible than the Dye i4s even. They seem to have gotten more solid in the more modern version of these goggles. These are pretty flexible though. I don't think you're gonna get smacked in the face, but you can see there's a lot of give here. It's not taking a lot of effort to push these in. In the front, it's definitely more solid, but the sides have a lot of give to them. There are attachment points on the inside for a chin strap. You can see here and here. So if you want to use a chin strap, the attachment points are there. Now these goggles, even though they're a little bit older, these will still run you 90 bucks, which is at the lower end of the high-end goggle price range, right? the most expensive goggles being the 125 plus range. I guess V-Force Profilers are less. I guess those are more in the $80 range, but these will run you $90 new, and you get a lot of goggle for that money. The downside really is the not quick change lens, but other than that, it's great breathability, really solid coverage, especially for a high-end goggle system. You got the visor, the pretty good ear coverage, better than most goggles like this, and way better than the Proto Axis Pro, which is a very similar goggle system otherwise. So that's my quick take on the Dye i3 goggle system. Thanks for watching. See you next time.